Wow, it looks like we have a new king. The main
Engineer reacts.
Man, I'm gonna get cut off in my own video? All right, hold your horses, Vivo. So today we're gonna look at the vivo X80 Pro versus the Xiaomi 12S. And this is only part one of this comparison. Today we're gonna focus on bokeh, and that was because I could take little pockets that's outside of the rain and still get nice shots to where, you know, we can already start to kind of form our opinion. Now, I will point out that the Xiaomi 12S Ultra was in Leica Authentic and the vivo X80 Pro was in Zeiss mode. Let's talk about bokeh. It's really defined as the quality of blur that you'll see in the background of your photographs. And it's good. There's gonna be times where you'll have the perfect shot and there's something in the background that you don't want. Also, the scene might call for more intense focus on the subject. Let's start with some of the setup photos. So I take several photos normally just to kind of see how the camera's gonna act. If we look at these photos, I think they're pretty good. You'll see that I got some focus, and there's a little bit of background blur. And as I was taking the photos, I noticed that there was a bumblebee, and it was perfect to kind of try to follow this bumblebee. So you'll see like I would catch him and there's not much blur, even though there's some in the very background. And then I started to get to where I could get him fully. And it told me a lot about the camera. So one of the things about the Xiaomi 12S Ultra is the incredible autofocus, and it's like multi-stage autofocus. It's kind of strange. So let's say, for instance, if you're zooming into something that has a substantial size, sort of like a cell phone, right? It will lock on and you'll get nice clear bokeh. But if the object is smaller, it's almost like it kicks to another algorithm that says, hey, this object might be moving fast or what have you. Put everything in focus and nail that focus. So you'll have to kind of play with the camera, just moving it back and forth to go, oh, okay, he or she wants me to blur this portion out. Another thing that I did was, all right, so now I'm kind of close tight in, but is there any separation of background? Cobra wanted me to check it out, so I'm checking it out now. I'll put his link to his channel down in the description. One of the best creators as far as the look of a video and how he story tells that you'll find. This is all coming from the Xiaomi. Now, the effective focal length is a little bit lower, so I've got a 35mm, and I think the effective focal length is approximately like 23 full frame. So you have to have it close like a Sigma 16 in the APS-C world. Now, this is a fountain that I go to that is out of service right now, which was strange, but so what I saw is good bokeh from the beginning, but I also saw a difference in color temperature. Now again, this was right at a pocket where it finished raining, dried up a little bit, but it was kind of hazy outside. But if we go back and kind of look, one of the things that you can kind of start to see, even though it's a blurred background, if you look at the clouds, right, the HDR from the Vivo starts to kind of show itself. So this was, like I said, this was kind of a tough scene because it's kind of hazy out there. The lights implementation kind of focuses on getting a little more punch to the photo, but I thought it kind of started to collapse a little bit because even though both backgrounds are blurry, you're starting to see that the shadows and all that stuff is kind of crushing the dynamic range just a little bit. I was happy with the sky in this scenario. All right, so then when we look at these next two photos, you can see now this is right after the rain and the sun is starting to peek out. And if we look at the X80 Pro that has the Zeiss filter, you'll see that the X80 Pro has the right color temperature on the tree. And I thought the quality of the background blur, so the in focus portion is the tree and then the rest is out of focus. But as we look at the Xiaomi 12S, we'll start to see a little bit, there's almost like a greenish tint here. And I noticed that popped up a couple of times, and the grass is very green. And in Florida, we don't typically, when you're in a park, see super green grass. So this is where it really, you start to blur and like if people that are like kind of saying, oh, well, yeah, this is all great, but what really can the cameras do? And this is kind of in a nutshell. So this is me zoomed in on a magnolia tree, right? So normally this would just look like with a normal phone, a lot of stuff, right? You would see exposed fruit and then you would see all the leaves going on the way back. However, you're able to, without going into portrait portrait mode, just taking your camera and hitting directly on the subject and quality blur. So this is the Vivo, right? And I think the Vivo had more muted colors. They were closer to natural. And again, you can see the rain on the actual petals, but to me, as far as bokeh quality, outstanding. As far as, I think, taking the shot in and getting it natural, outstanding. But this is kind of where, when we see these partnerships, you kind of see what kind of things can happen. Now, I personally was extremely impressed with the way the Xiaomi took the photo. So the Xiaomi, to me, seemed like one of the things that Leica likes to do is to increase the shadows. It seems like Leica really likes to focus on that. And I just really felt like this shot here, even if people don't prefer, I was looking again, I was comparing the quality of the background blur. I thought it did a great job. The focus portion, or the subject, was looking extremely well and grabbed a lot of detail. You can tell that there's rain petals and all that stuff, but this is something that I would expect to do like when I went into Lightroom or something like that to make adjustments. So again, all these shots are out of the camera, auto mode, and I'm always shooting, not that I feel like it's necessary, but I just have fun with the pro modes in the Vivo. So I'm always in the pro mode if I'm taking pictures myself. So let's go to the next one. So here's another example of the fruit, and you see that the colors are jumping as well. So you know right off the bat with the saturated colors. But again, the quality of the depth of field, again, this is a smartphone. So you really start to see the separation. Now, these are equivalent. I think this is a f-stop equivalent of 5.0 and it's a f-stop equivalent of 5.6 with respect to full frame with the vivo X80 Pro. So in a studio, it's not going to give you that massive background blur, but it's going to give you significant when you're outside if you're close to the subject. Now, I thought the Vivo did a great job, but I would have to, if we go back and forth, I would have to go a little bit closer because there is a nice building behind where I'm taking shots. And if you look, I think the Vivo, I kind of like the Vivo's color accuracy that I got, and I can go do stuff in post. However, you can actually see quite a bit of different in the bokeh, and I think they both did a good job. But with all of the stuff back there with it, you know, when I look, it's more pleasing to me because I'm kind of taken out of reality here. I see everything in focus, and then I kind of see what's back there, whereas I kind of can tell right away that there's a building back there in the Vivo shot. This is just one leaf that was brown outside of all the green leaves, and I kind of focus on that. And again, this is the Vivo, and sun is really starting to pipe through. This is the Xiaomi. So again, it's going to come down a lot to personal preference where you like the photos. And I always mention it with Vivo, when you're in the Zeiss mode, it's more closer to natural. And if you want to get the more saturated colors, kind of took the OnePlus approach as well, where if you turn off the Hasselblad processing, you turn off the Zeiss processing, you'll get that more saturated look. I'm putting these cameras in a tough situation. I really want us to focus on the bokeh because I'll kind of show you, we look at the building shots that are not having to contend with all these different colors that are having light hitting on. So you can see that there's a lot of clouds here. So when I zoom in, you can see that there's incredible detail on both, and you can start to nitpick, and that's what we're going to do in our part 2. We're going to actually start nitpicking, like comparing the HDR between the two in different types of shots, and also the recovered detail. But I have to say, I have not had this much fun recording and taking photos. And before you go, click here if you want to see any more videos on this Xiaomi or other Xiaomis I've done recently. And with that, we're out.